Welcome back to the Fan Speak Network and another episode of Sibling Showdown, our strategy edition. Every week, Steve and I, my brother, get together and talk through different best ball strategies to help us in our live drafts. And of course, on this channel, be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe if you haven't already, because we have best ball shows every single weekday, strategy shows, live, plenty of live drafts. And as the main best ball season approaches, we'll do all sorts of different kinds of drafts from different sites, different styles, all that good stuff. So Steve, now it's time to talk strategy. How are you doing? And then we'll talk through what we're talking about today, which is the mid to late round tight ends. But how are you doing? How are you doing keeping up with your drafts?
Doing well. Keeping up with drafts. I have over 150 drafts completed, football drafts completed on Underdog, but I still have a bunch more, like 30 some slows going. So it's been a grind, but it's going. But yeah, no, looking forward to talking about tight ends today.
Absolutely. Again, if you're coming in, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, we're almost to 500 subs. When we hit 500 subs, we are doing a big $500 live stream giveaway party. So help us get there. And again, best ball shows every single weekday. So Steve, today our strategy session is talking about mid to late round tight end builds. There are plenty of mid to late round tight ends that you and I both really like. And when we are building out three, tight ends in those type of builds, there are three that we feel, can kind of ping pong through the season and through playoffs to have success. Now, the great part of best ball is you can win in multiple ways. I personally have had the most success with these mid to late round tight end builds, and I tend to lean into them more than the elite tight ends. I kind of force myself to do elite tight ends. How do you feel about the mid to late round tight ends? And I actually know that you've had a lot of success with mid to late round tight end builds as well.
Yeah. So, the thing with mid to late tight end builds is couple-fold. One, tight end, like any position, half point best ball or half point PPR best ball, very touchdown dependent. Mm-hmm. And that's why 2 years ago, Brock Bowers was able to be tight end one, even though he didn't have the number of targets, et cetera. That's why we've seen George Kittle have these spike years of like 10 plus touchdowns and really elevate above his target share. And so you're late round, you're not typically going to get the Sam Laportas, but what you can get are multiple guys who are getting like 10, 12 touchdowns, but what you can get are multiple guys getting 7 to 8 touchdowns. And when you do that, you're getting what you just talked about in that spike week of getting alternating spike weeks. And that's just a big benefit of that. Now, last year was even helped by the two most volume tight ends. Brock Bowers only had 5 touchdowns and Trey McBride only had 2, and one of those was week 18, I believe. So that helped a bit as well. But yeah, it keeps tight end. Basically, anytime you get a touchdown, you're viable. Mm-hmm. And when we have a lot of these guys who can get 6, 7, 8, 9 touchdowns that we're getting at a discount, it makes a lot of guys interesting and viable.
Yeah, absolutely. And two of the guys you mentioned, Brock Bowers last year and Sam Laporta, saying you can't get them mid to late. Well, you can't get them mid to late this year, but you could get them in their rookie year. And we'll get to that in a minute. You got Sam Laporta mid, late, and then he kind of came up the board in his rookie year. Same with Brock Bowers, kind of stayed in that like around 100, ADP 100 last year. And that's really nice when you can get the tight end one. The last 2 years has been rookie finished as tight end one, correct?
Yeah.
Bowers last year and Laporta the year before. So could it be that we get 3 years in a row of a rookie tight end finishing tight end one? I don't know. It's going to be tough because they have to jump guys like Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, Sam Laporta. But, there's Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, both going, almost certainly going in the first round of the NFL draft. And so depending on landing spots, they could give it a run for its money for it to be tight end, and we're getting them mid to late. One other thing before we go to the list and talk through the mid to late round targets that we actually like is that I know you have had success. Again, we truly believe you can win in best ball, have success in best ball in multiple ways. And that's why we love so much about it. But I know you're a big board team. You had 16 finals teams last year, but your big board team rose to the top and you knew you were sweating that out. That was a mid to late round tight end build. And ironically, you and I both had Zach Ertz, one of the last picks of the draft last year. And On my Bulldog team, which was finals, finished in 5th place in the Bulldog last year. We were both sweating it out in the best ball finals, and we both had Zach Ertz, and he scores 2 touchdowns week 17. Absolute hero for us. And he was literally, I mean, in the 18 round drafts, I'm assuming 20 round drafts, he was going super late too, but I believe he was like my last pick or second to last pick. So I know you have had success with mid to late round tight ends. Does that kind of, sometimes I do think there is that bias of like, you do lean into what's worked for you in the past in best ball. Does that kind of speak to you?
Yeah. I mean, to me, the big thing is I need to see the path. And so somebody like Brock Bowers, because he's used like a receiver, I can see the path for the value.
Right.
I mentioned this in the draft we did earlier where we took Brock Bowers, and Trey McBride's only going about a round below Brock Bowers. And the tough thing is, Bowers got a better quarterback, got less competition with no Devontae Adams, and it's just in year 2. Trey McBride obviously has been in the league a couple years now. Quarterback's the same, and he probably has more competition with Marvin Harrison Jr. ascending. So of the 2 like truly elites, like Bowers, I'm fine with, just because the volume is just so high and the touchdown should improve. But yeah, some of these other guys like Kittle and Laporta are great. And Mark Andrews, we see like last year, Andrews had 11 touchdowns. What happens if you only get 6 or 7 this year? Like his fantasy value really takes a hit. And he should be going, much later at that point. So that's what it really boils down to is, can some of these other guys pay off early? Yeah, maybe if they get the touchdowns, but Bowers is the only one that I know a clear path that he's going to get enough targets to be fantasy relevant pretty much no matter what.
Yeah. And I mean, I get your point on Bowers and, now having Geno Smith as his quarterback, and that you see the path. But I do think Trey McBride should have touchdown regression, come his way and getting more touchdowns. But and I do, I mean, I don't mind the tight ends like you were speaking of going back to the little Porterwell or Kittle. To me, it's just the opportunity cost. The drafts that I do where I start with, between my first 6 or 7 picks, whether I get a elite quarterback or not, where I'm getting at least 2 to 3 running backs or 2 to 3 receivers and having that balance to start, it just feels nicer to me. And when you take an elite tight end, it's obviously taking one of the positions. And I do want to obviously, have a nice stable of the elite quarterbacks too, because I kind of prioritize quarterbacks and running backs and then receivers and tight ends in half point PPR. So the other thing I'll mention, again, maybe it's just a bias because my BBM finals team, mid-late round tight end build, my Bulldog finals team, definitely mid to a late round tight, just full blown late round tight end build. And I've just, again, the last few years of like the tight ends that can hit that are undervalued that you can get mid to late, the rookies that you can get mid to late. Maybe it's a bias there. The other factor I'll throw out before we get to the list is, some of it's just, and maybe this is just like, just thinking it through like anecdotally, but I'd have to actually see the data. But, when I did used to draft more elite tight ends, like in Kelsey's heyday and stuff like that, and I'd be taking him in round 1 or round 2, it just feels like these tight ends, no matter where you're drafting them, it's hard to see them hit 3 weeks in a row, where I feel like it feels like you get that happening more often where they hit 3 weeks in a row. Cause I remember that year, a couple of years ago, we had actually a live stream draft where we had Kelsey early, and he had an amazing season. This was, I think, 2022 season, I'm guessing. Yeah. But amazing season. But, first week of the playoffs did nothing, week 15 did nothing. And then that team, was obviously hurting. And I think some of the other early picks didn't do as well too. But yeah, anecdotally for me, it's hard to see like an elite, any tight end, honestly, go off 3 weeks in a row. And so that's been my issue too. I do strongly believe if you're building a big best ball portfolio that you need to diversify your strategy builds. So I am going to force myself to take, elite tight ends or, early to mid round tight ends too. But with that said, we do like the mid to late round tight ends. And now let's go look at the list of who we are targeting the most of these mid to late round tight ends, because that's what's obviously important is the who. So starting with ADP, we can even start honestly at right before ADP. I was going to say ADP 100, but I don't mind taking Jonnu Smith. We saw he was actually the late round tight end hero for me in best ball last year. Again, someone was just undervalued in a new offense. I don't mind going back to him. But my favorite one starting off here is Tyler Warren. Why don't you start us off with those two?
Yeah, I mean, my favorite is Tyler Warren as well. Jonnu is same though. There's probably a little bit more fragility there. Just
Mm-hmm.
he needed Hill and Waddle to both be banged up and have down years, and they're probably a little deeper. And who knows, they might add a mid-round tight end. I mean, Mason Taylor's dad and uncle both played for the Dolphins, so he might be going there. But no, I mean, Tyler Warren is the guy. He is the rookie who could make this 3 years in a row as a rookie being tight end one. Landing spot might be a bit more questionable, but as we saw last year with Brock Bowers, I mean, if Aiden O'Connell can get you there, anyone can get you there.
Yeah.
Warren just is such a unique player. He's going to get runs. He's going to probably throw the ball some, but he's going to be just tremendous in the red zone. He's not as dynamic as some other tight ends, but he's such a great route runner, good hands. Like I said, he's going to be used on some short yardage runs, maybe in tush pushes in the right team.
I was just going to say tush pushes would be amazing.
Even if not, like we saw Dallas Goedert get a couple tight end runs that helped him late in the year. Like Warren should get runs almost every game. Like that's the type of player that he is. So
yeah,
that just helps his bottom line. And then going down, Travis Kelce, look, he had 800 plus yards. Touchdowns weren't there, but as touchdowns come back, he's going to be well worth it. David Njoku, hate the quarterback, but don't hate his game because David Njoku is so good. He only played, I think, 11 games last year, but still like 500 plus yards, 5 touchdowns. He's probably the number 2 target on that team. So that's something we like. Tucker Kraft is honestly a tight end that I struggle a little bit more with, just because there's another tight end waiting in the wings in Luke Musgrave. 2 years ago, it was Musgrave over Kraft. Last year, somewhat due to injury, it was Kraft over Musgrave. What happens going forward? In Jordan Love builds fine, but I'm actually not taking him much beyond that.
Yeah, as you can see, I don't have any of the 3. The nice thing about Best Ball Overlay, if I could just interrupt really quick, is Best Ball Overlay, use code FANSPEAK, you get $10 off a month on Best Ball Overlay. It shows your percentages, a lot of other things you can do in live in a draft, seeing your combinations, seeing your correlations, but it helps you see your exposures. And right now, I have much less volume than you. I am a little bit of 9% Jonnu, 23% Warren, and a dollar amount, but I have so far faded Njoku, Kelce, and Kraft. To me, we've already seen the dip with Kelce, so I like these other guys around him much better. So it's as simple as that. You mentioned about Kraft and Jordan Love ability to be open to it, and I need to be open to Njoku because I know how good of a tight end he is. It's the quarterback situation for me. So just defending my where I stand, and we are going to make probably different stands on these mid to late round tight ends, but that's where I stand. Is I'm very, very high on Warren, very much out on Kelce, and have a low stand on Njoku and Kraft, or don't have them yet, but would only take them in certain types of builds. Yeah.
So before I go any further, this is what we're talking about here is the opportunity cost, because, we're even starting at right before pick 100.
Yeah.
But if you go pick 100, if you look at the other positions, you're done with starting running backs at pick 100.
Yeah. Let me scroll down.
There's not a starting running back.
Sorry, I couldn't be back up. Yes. So
if you're it's maybe a rookie like Cam Scatterbo, maybe a rookie like Devin Neal or some other guys, but the other running backs in that range are just not starting running backs and just almost purely contingent value plays.
Yeah.
Same with receiver. Like once you get past Cooper Kupp, again, a couple rookies who right landing spot can hit. Stephon Diggs, if he signs with the Patriots, a few guys like that, they could hit, but it's a lot of guys with just very questionable outlooks.
We're talking about Travis Hunter's now going in the 90s. His still says 106, but I'm high on him. We're high on him, but he's going higher.
These guys so this is what we mean by opportunity cost. I mean, there's some, don't get me wrong, some of these receivers I'm definitely still taking and liking.
Sure.
But in fact, most of those guys are fine to take. It's just there's not a massive they're likely not to be home run picks. They're probably just solid starters, your 5th or 6th wide receiver, your 4th or 5th running back, your 4th running back probably at this range. And yet we're getting starting tight ends, our top tight end.
Right.
And not just that, but like a tight end, what's in, Warren, like tight end 9.
Going up to that, back up to Warren is tight end 8. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're getting your tight end 7, 8, 9, 10, these guys in the same range. And as we go further, it thins out even more at those other positions. And yet we're still getting like starting caliber tight ends with upside. So
Absolutely. That's a great point. Yeah. Thank you.
and so that's really where the opportunity cost comes. And look, yes, I mean, there's like some of these guys, Colson Loveland, we're hoping it goes back to Jim Harbaugh and that Michigan coaching staff.
My 23% is sure
But,
hoping.
likely a mid first round pick, really talented receiving tight end. A lot of people comp him to a young Travis Kelce. And just going down like
I did just get my first, I think 2 Ingram shares. It just hasn't updated yet, but because I do want to start taking more Ingram, as we talked about in our last show. Free agents that have landing spots that we're now drafting more of. Ingram is one of them. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Kincaid, sure, it's been a disappointment so far. He's banged up last year, but I mean, there's again outcomes where he's one of Josh Allen, one of the most elite quarterbacks, top weapons. I mean, that last year he was going way too high in round 5, but you're getting him much later. There's just upside there. Evan Ingram, you just mentioned, he got a great landing spot. Isaiah Likely, look, he could ascend, Mark Andrews this year, and Dallas Goedert. I know there's trade rumors around Philly, but on a per game basis, his biggest thing is staying healthy. He's missed like at least 3 or 4 games pretty much every year of his career. But when he's out there, he's very good. Has some good spike week potential.
Oh yeah.
And Jake Ferguson, a guy 2 years ago, he was a touchdown machine. Last year, he had 0 touchdowns. So is it going to be somewhere in the middle? Is it like 2 years ago? That's what it depends on.
Everything went wrong for Dallas last year. I am more hopeful in the offense this year.
But this is what I mean about touchdowns being so tantamount, paramount to a guy's success. And actually, one of the most stark examples is Zach Ertz and Hunter Henry. They had essentially the same number of catches, same number of yards. Ertz had 7 or 8 touchdowns. Henry had 2. Gesicki was right there as well in terms of catches, yards, and he only had 2 touchdowns. Right. So Henry and Gesicki finishes like tight end 17 and 18 or whatever it was, and Ertz is like tight end 10. So touchdowns are so key and so paramount for these guys, and that's why I like mixing up these types of guys and getting. If you get a build with 2 or 3 of these, this real mid tier, then I really think it's strong because hopefully, and it's the other reason to target some teams that good offenses. That maybe throw more touchdowns, and Gesicki just was unlucky. But you're just going down this list. Pat Fryermuth has been years that he gets 7 touchdowns. He's a fantasy stud. Cole Kmet a couple years ago had 7, 8 touchdowns. We'll see how Ben Johnson likes them, but similar. There's just a lot of upside.
As you can see, I have a lot more exposure as we go down into this range. So
and again, the opportunity cost is getting less and less. Like the receivers you're taking in the 150s, 160s. There's
a couple of the 170s here. A
couple of rookies that are interesting, but not a lot to love there. And same with the running back. You're really getting thin at those positions. In terms of guys, like, yes, if you get lucky and the right injury happens, sure, maybe you get a productive player, but most times those are very much contingent value plays who you're lucky if you get 1 usable week from. You might get 8 usable weeks from Hunter Henry or Pat Fryermuth, so that's really what we're talking about. Opportunity cost is the biggest factor to that. By doing so, by waiting, you can stack up particularly your running backs and receivers in those first 7, 8 rounds. Maybe add a quarterback in that mix as well, and then be hitting tight ends in that rounds 9 through 15 range, get 2 or 3 there, and even lower. Like as we'll see, there are some real.
I'm open to 9 through 20 in big board drafts.
Sure. No, for sure. And the other guy I really want to highlight is Brenton Strange.
I need more of them.
With Ingram's cut, he is taking over as the tight end there. He flashed last year in some work. I do still like Juwan Johnson going back to the Saints. I think that's a strong play.
Your favorite one is right here.
Oh, Mike Gesicki, but he already talked about him.
Oh, okay. Well, I just want to highlight, I have 21%. Being able to get Bengals exposure at pick 184 is really nice. And like you said, he could have some touchdown regression. We talked about, Trey McBride could have touchdown regression. Gesicki could have tight end regression. He got a really nice contract. So I have 21%. He's gone up since the beginning of the big board, but it's still too cheap in my mind. And I love this price.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
And then as for the really late rounds, the 19th, 20th round guys,
I was going to say, who are some of your favorites in these?
That I'm targeting? Juwan Johnson, I mentioned, but then it really comes down to Theo Johnson. Very similar situation to Brenton Strange. He's very much the presumptive starting tight end for the Giants, also former Penn State tight end like Brenton Strange.
Mm-hmm.
And, he looked good as a rookie. He had like 350, 400 yards before he got injured. His quarterback play, I think, is going to be better. It'd be pretty tough to be worse. And I think he's likely, just has some potential for a breakout. And then you got these rookies like Elijah Arroyo and Mason Taylor, I think are second round tight ends in the NFL draft. I think.
Where's Arroyo? Oh, there he is. Sorry.
Arroyo. If they get decent landing spots, they could be starters. They could be full season starters. So I really like them. And those are kind of the ones that I definitely are targeting the most in that 19th, 20th round.
Yeah. Because I mean, in the beginning, I was taking some way down, Conklin, Gunnerhelm, Gadsden, some flyers, but I've kind of stopped there.
One other 20th round is Ferguson, the Oregon tight end. I think he could sneak into the second round and actually could go higher than Harold Fannin. He's someone I thought I had to share him, but I guess not. So I do need to just be open to that in like the 20th round. Would like some more Mason Taylor. This has been helpful for me. I mean, basically, as you can see, if just looking at Best Ball Overlay, again, code FANSPEAK for $10 off a month. If you have a big portfolio of Best Ball, this certainly helps you balance out your exposures and combinations. But, as you can see, if you just use the exercise of going to the top, I have 7% George Kittle, just a sprinkle of Bowers, not much else. And then you go down, I have a little Jonnu and then Tyler Warren's where it starts for me. 23%, Loveland, 23%. I'm going to be big on these. This is a strong rookie tight end class too. Maybe we get 3 years in a row. Just the way Tyler Warren can be used, the potential landing spot for Loveland, really like that. And then, we talked about in our free agency show, need more Ingram. And then this range is like, I'm just very kind of evenly spread, a lot of 10%ers. Hunter Henry, I have a good bit of because of taking a lot of Drake May. I thought I probably need an update that I probably do have some more Brenton Strange, have 14% Zach Ertz. My favorite late round is probably Gesicki, again, gain that late exposure to the Bengals, but then it's kind of balances out. So those are kind of my favorites. If you had to name from Tyler Warren to the very end at cost, let's just have a fun exercise. I just kind of quickly went through showing my exposures and showing kind of reasons why for the heavier ones. Just you went through them kind of individually, highlighting them quickly. Yeah. At cost, top three. It could be top three that you're at now, or just top three that you want to be at cost exposure from Tyler Warren on. I mean, so I'll say at cost, I think Loveland is just a fantastic value. And so he'd probably be number one. Number two, I'm going to go scroll down. I'm going to go. This is tough because I like a lot of guys in this mid.
I was going to say, I know you like a lot of guys in this range.
I'll say Gesicki.
I was going to say, you got to say Gesicki.
Yeah. I think you can make a strong case for Freiermuth, Hunt, Henry, Ertz as well, and Strange, honestly.
Yeah, this whole range. Yeah.
And then my super late guy, early on when I thought Kelsey was retiring, who's Noah Gray, but that didn't happen. So I'm going to say Theo Johnson.
Okay.
I just think I don't see the Giants adding a tight end. They used a third round pick on Theo Johnson last year. He looked good and, could be potentially a rookie quarterback's best friend. And, the second, third option on that team behind Neighbors and maybe Slayton. And
then you did your top three tight ends in the mid to late at cost that you're kind of targeting. Who are you highest on of these mid to late currently? And you have about 150 done. Who are you highest on right now?
Gesicki, Henry, Freiermuth, and Warren.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I just wanted to. But this is a helpful exercise. We put our money where our mouth is. We're showing our exposures. You're talking about your exposures. We're definitely you can see it on with Best Ball Overlay, the exposures and everything. But Steve will, has much more volume than me, and he'll tell you, I have X percent, XY percent of these guys. And so it's helpful to know, okay, we like these mid to late round tight ends. Who do we have the most of? And that was helpful to just talk them through. So this was a fun exercise, and that's what these strategy shows are about. It's not to have, it's kind of have like a quick, like half hour or less conversation of, a particular topic that we can then help improve, the way we're drafting our portfolio and kind of maximizing our best ball portfolio. So this has helped me because I love the mid to late round tight end builds. Any final thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, no. And again, for us, it really comes down to the opportunity cost of it. And that's our favorite way to play. But like you said, anyway, there's ways to do any build you want. But
absolutely. But if you do go the mid to late round tight end, hopefully you find this helpful. We appreciate you joining us for this show. Hit the like button on the way out, and be sure to pay attention to all the FanSpeak Network best ball shows every single weekday. So go out there, get your tight ends, and we will see you next time. But for Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.